Hello, winners, and welcome to Two for the Win with your hosts, Nick and Will. Have you ever wondered about the concept called lean? And many people may know of it as a manufacturing approach, but it's actually, you can apply it in all areas of your life. Well, we will chat more about that, but before we do, please be sure to subscribe, share, and follow Two for the Win on your favorite platform. I want to give a shout out to nickmenard.com and the 1% Push, as well as his Amazon best-selling book, Mindset is My Degree, for sponsoring today's episode. Happy Monday, Nick.
Happy Monday, Will. Thank you. Hello, nerds.
Hello. So, lean, a lot of people may not know necessarily about what lean is, but it actually is a methodology. It was made famous in manufacturing in terms of driving efficiencies and effectiveness, right? Like, how do you produce more goods quicker at lower cost and more efficiency? But, I got introduced to it from a former guest we had on the podcast, R.A. Boss, and it really opened my eyes about how you could apply it in the service industry, like where we're at right now. But you could apply it to really all sorts of things. Grocery stores have done it, when you think about the checkouts and all that. But anyway, there's always it's never a bad time to drive improvements in optimizing your efficiency and effectiveness, whatever you're doing, whether it's a job, whether it's personal life or things like that. But any high level thoughts about lean and the approach you could use it with?
Well, when I think about lean, I always think about eliminate waste is usually what comes to mind, but also like eliminate everything that should not be there, and that's the eliminate waste thing. But it's very, people who worked with me or clients or things like that who work with me, they know that I'm all about going straight to the point and not have all those and significant things on your plate. And I think the lean management is really something to take into consideration more. So I'm looking forward to this episode and have our listeners listen to what we believe is a great thing to add to your leadership team if needed.
Yeah, it definitely adds a perspective in how you view things and separates the wheat from the chaff, as I like to say. But all right, well, now it's time for our favorite segment, Quotes and Quips. All right, the first quote comes from somebody who you didn't know personally, but you learned quite a bit about as he lived in an area that was really famous for where his reign ended, from Napoleon Bonaparte. But Napoleon's quote is, "Take time to deliberate, but when the time for action comes, stop thinking and go in."
Hallelujah. I mean, I know a few people that should have that on top of their laptop, so they have always that in mind.
Should have it tattooed on the inside of their eyelids.
Oh my God. And I still don't think it's gonna work.
No.
But so I mean, I think that if you follow us for a while, you know that we like to be efficient and do the right thing and make sure that people have one or two focus area at a time instead of just bombarding with things. But also we like to get stuff done. GSD, like we like to call.
Yeah.
I mean, I really have that. I want to have that on my signature, because it's literally what it's all about. And Napoleon Bonaparte, when he's saying that, he's literally saying, stop talking to talk, just to listen to your voice. Stop trying to get everything perfect before taking action. Just have an idea, get together to see how you want to go about this idea, and then do it. And just do it. Is it going to be perfect? No. Guess what? After 20 meetings, it's still not going to be perfect. Right. But you waste 20 meetings and probably 2 months of time that could have been done starting the process. So get stuff done. When you think about a good idea, start with you scale it small first, and the goal is to scale it wider when you see that it's working, and you tweak it as you go. Unless you are a surgeon or you are someone who jumped with a parachute from an airplane, you want to make sure that everything is perfect. Other than that, you don't save lives. So make the little tweak as you see fit, as you move forward, but at least you get somewhere at some point, instead of starting a million years from now or never start. How many times do we have situation where you have someone bringing a very good idea, and because there's always one or two person in a group who are challenging that idea. At the
Mhm.
end of the day, we decide to not even do it.
Right.
And it's going to come back on the plate probably a year from now. But we waste too much time with meetings talking about things. So let's hack. So I love this. So when we were preparing for that, like Will showed me, like he was scrolling, showed me like 12 quotes, and I was like, and then say that one, because this is literally something that I think a lot of people should keep in mind.
I totally agree. I mean, you can talk things to death, but at the end of the day, it's about action. The world responds to action. It always has. And to your point, I think you get that paralysis by analysis for some folks, and it's just like, no, you don't need to talk it to death. Just start, iterate as you go. Be agile. I mean, my goodness, the world is going under so much rapid change. It's never going to be any slower than what it is currently. It's only going to be even more rapid with change, especially because of technology
Mm.
and the advancements with technology. You got to be agile, and you just, to your point, just get it started, figure it out as you go. Don't talk it to death, and don't.
I have an analogy for that.
Yeah.
ChatGTP. Everybody knows ChatGTP.
Mhm.
When you type something, you want to have an answer. Do they give you an answer tomorrow or give you spit it out something immediately?
Mhm.
They spit it out immediately. Guess what? Rarely you copy paste that and send, right?
Right.
You just receive something immediately from ChatGTP and then you just tweak it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the same principle.
Yeah.
You can never have something perfect before sending or before presenting or before starting a project. So try it and improve it.
Well said. I like the analogy too. Good one. All right. The next one is, this comes from, I do
Quip.
not. Yeah, it's a quip. Baltasar Gracian. So I'm sure I butchered that name.
He's a friend.
Baltazar. Yeah, if you're listening, sorry, brother. please hit us up and let us know how to pronounce your name. But
BG.
yeah. But BG had a nice quip, and so the quip is, a wise person does at once what a fool does at last.
Yeah,
Thoughts on that one?
start, because I started the preview one. Start this one because I have an idea, but I think you will have
Oh
the
yeah.
same one.
Well, I think on this one, you know, some people, they take forever to get to the point, or they take forever to get to the epiphany or to see the vision or whatever, and it can be frustrating, right? But a wise person, like, let's tie it to the lean, because that's
Mhm.
our theme of today, our subject. You know, if you notice something that's not working, what's that old analogy? Insanity is doing the same thing over
Over
and
and
over
over
again,
again,
and
expecting different results.
exactly. And it's like, hey, you know, and instead of, in the accounting, we both were in financial services at one point. Uh, in accounting, they have a term called sunk cost.
Mhm.
What a sunk cost is, hey, you spent a lump sum of money on something. That money is spent. You can't get it back. And if that thing that you spent the money on isn't giving you the return of what you wanted, whatever it is, if you're gonna stick with it just because you're like, oh, I spent the money on it, I mean, why? Like, you're better off putting an end to it and optimizing going forward versus just hanging on. And it's almost like you're self penalizing yourself, you know. But anyway, when I thought of that, I was thinking about, yeah, I mean, for some people, it takes them forever to get it versus just, no, you see it, it's not working, optimize it, move forward.
Yeah. So I was going the similar way. For me, it's all about you cannot have everybody at the same pace to the same level at the same time.
Mm.
And I think it's important to realize that sometimes you need, as a leader, you need to make your voice heard and saying like, guys, trust me, just let's do it. Like again, you do that we work in a service, service department. So it's, we can always change, improve, and it's not going to be impacting too much, but you don't wait to have everybody in agreement or on the same page. Just start. If you start smaller, then
Mm-hmm.
because we all have, or you, the business unit or department or region, whatever you want to call it, and just do it and prove them. So that's something that I realized. Sometime, when it doesn't involve, budget or finance, just do it within your own organization, team, region. And
Yeah.
then you come up with data a month, 2 months, 3 months later, depending on what it is that you need to do. And then you say, here's what I did. And here's the result. Here's where we were. Here's where we are now.
Yeah.
People who are analytics, they want to see results. They want to see data. But when we have an idea that you want to implement, there are no data. So you need to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So take the initiative to start and show them the data. You will have those analytic person who are usually more on the defensive, on the slower pace. You will
Mhm.
them on board a lot faster. And then those expressive and driver, usually they go for it.
Yeah, yeah.
And the amiable, they will follow.
Yeah.
So just something to think about. Just don't try to have everybody understanding on the same page, and do something and show them the results on a smaller scale.
Totally agree. I think it's tough to get consensus on a lot of
That's
things.
the
You have
word I
to
was
go with
looking.
you have to go with the majority, and if the majority are ready to roll, roll. And the other ones. So I modified my analogy a little bit. I've been saying, long enough. I say, you can either get on the train or you get left behind the train. Kind of modified it a little bit now. I said that people can either get on the train or I'll give them a bus pass to go somewhere else.
I wish I had those passes.
Pass out to some people. Yeah. But it's like, no, listen, like yeah, some people, I mean, it's good to have a methodical approach, but you can't slow things down so much to like what you're saying, to have everything drawn out and detailed and that you're not going to foster innovation when you do stuff like that, and you're certainly not being agile. But we will bring it back now to lean. And I think one of the more famous like applications of lean that people would know is the Japanese word kaizen. And
Mhm.
Toyota made that famous in the 70s where they were trying to get into the auto market business, at least internationally beyond Japan. And one of the things that eventually gave them a competitive edge over the American auto manufacturers who were dominant at the time was the concept of Kaizen. And Kaizen was basically, this is oversimplification, but it was basically about how do we improve efficiency and effectiveness so that the quality of the cars come out better, faster, and get rid of waste and break things down. And so, the famous, well, for people who know me within the organization I'm currently at, the famous example was I was leading a department, and one of the things they do is they onboard new clients, right? And RA, who was our guest, came by and he's like, "How many steps do you think it takes from the point somebody becomes a client to when you can get them onboarded?" And I'm like, I don't know, maybe 8 to 12. And he's like, "Do me a favor." He goes, "Let's rent a conference room, and we're going to take a post-it note, and we're going to put all the steps." And we reserved the conference room. We were in there for 3 hours, and for me, doing this type of work, if we were on the fourth floor, I would have jumped out the window. Like, it's too painstaking, methodical, but it was a massive paradigm shifting experience for
Eye
me.
opening.
And we wrote all the different steps, and he's posting it on this huge whiteboard. 133.
Steps.
133.
Wow.
And so he's like, here's where it's manual, here's where it's waste, here's where there's redundancy, here's where people are touching things multiple times when it doesn't need to be touched multiple times, in terms of activities in the queue and stuff like that. And it was just shocking. And I remember we had left it up for like a week. We told, we wrote on the board, like to the cleaning folks, like, do not take these down or whatever. And people started seeing it and they're like, what in the heck is this? And it's like, that's how many steps it actually takes right now. Reality. That's one of the things he was famous for saying, document reality. And we documented reality. And at the end of the day, when you had sales partners, service partners, blah, 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 the client themselves, 133 steps. And so what we did over the course of the next week is just really like almost like take a machete and just like, what do we get rid of? What can be semi-automated? What can be automated? What wasn't even needed and was just bogging down the system? And we got it down to 31. and the productivity. I mean, at first you wouldn't. I mean, I was just kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, we can make it more efficient and stuff like that, just to free up time and stuff. But it led to a huge productivity improvement, and so that
Wow.
really opened my eyes to the power of lean. And obviously, that wasn't applied in a manufacturing sense; it was applied to processes. But
Wow, that's a great example. And I remember because I remember you telling me that. I forgot about the fact it was 133 or something, but it's crazy to have 100 steps taking away. So I can imagine the amount of, speed. And that's why I think in that department everything went crazy good after making those changes
yeah,
because the
thanks, RA
client
boss.
the client
Yeah.
were on board a lot faster.
Mhm.
So better chance to be able to showcase, like productivity faster to the
Mhm.
decision maker and things like that. Well, that's great. Well, lean for me, it's more than a business, like methodology. For me, it's a mindset for continued improvement. Like
Yeah.
again, we come back to that. But what I love about your example about Toyota, they literally ask themselves three questions: Is are we doing the right thing? Are we doing those things the right way? And are we doing it with the right people?
Mhm.
So those were the three questions to ask. So think about it. If you are a business owner or you work in a company as a leader or things like that, ask yourself those three questions. And if you think that something should be changed across any of those questions, ask yourself, how can I bring that up to my leader? Or if it's your business, how can you improve that within the tools that you currently have?
Mhm.
And I think that by asking that to other people, it will also help people think and say, well, yes, I think we do the right thing. I think we could do things different though to get there. Or do we have the right people for that? Or do we have too many people? Or maybe one person could replace a couple with better, qualifications and things like that.
Yeah.
So it can go different way. But I love the empowerment of people in this aspect. So the third step, I love so what are we doing to empower people? And
Mhm.
that's something we talked about during different episodes that we talked about. But the empowerment of people is very important because if someone is bored or someone is feeling that they're not adding any kind of value, well, that's where they can start looking left and right and see
Mhm.
how they can get something that can challenge them.
Mhm.
And so you don't want that to happen to your great people. And usually people who look for better challenges are people who are productive because
Mhm.
they need it.
Yeah.
People who are there, they just catch the paycheck. They don't really care. They will not look for challenge. They look for ways to get less things to do.
Oh, yeah.
And so pay attention in that. And that's where lean can come very good. When you ask yourself the right question at the right time, you can actually make people think and make better decision for your business.
Yeah, yeah, and I think, that's one of the things you touched on something that made me think about one of my first jobs as a teenager. I worked at a bakery in the back, and I would load up trucks.
Well, you were
And,
eating everything.
oh yeah, that was one of the perks of the job is that you got the day old bakery and you could eat that stuff. But my nature was how do I get these trucks loaded the quickest? But because I was an hourly worker, I didn't really
Still don't
get
want to.
I didn't get benefits from being more efficient because then they would just give me more work to do. And so it was actually the opposite of lean. I would take more time so I could do a fair amount of work for what I got paid, but it didn't incentivize me to be more efficient, and something like that.
So as an owner, as a business owner, you'd see that and you said, why am I paying those people hourly? There may probably a better way. Like I can pay them based on the job done.
Yeah, like
And
how many trucks you loaded,
Mhm.
right? Like now that would incentivize me to be more efficient and effective because I would make more money the more trucks I
Mhm.
loaded up with product. Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
again, that's what lean can do. It can make you
Mhm.
think about different steps. So I love that. But how to implement lean to your business?
Mhm.
Like again, like I mentioned, we can ask those three questions and start with that. But as a as a global leader, how are you able to implement that into your leadership team for them to be applying that lean methodology?
That's a great question. And it really is broad because you could do it in a variety of ways. I'll give two quick examples and then let me know if it doesn't quite hit the mark and I can pivot. But one that I did recently, so I had a mentor who used to be part of the operating committee of the company we were at, and he would recommend a book every birthday. I would get a book
Mm-hmm.
on birthday. So, and one of the books that he provided was called Work Rules, and it was written by a former HR executive at Google. And one of the concepts that he talked about in Work Rules that they did at Google around, I think it was like 2010 or so, is they were growing so fast and they had all their managers involved in interviews. But what happened was you would have a wide variance in how you assess talent. And so what they did is they took the talent screening and the interviewing away from the managers and instead had a specialist team, and then the people would get hired and then the managers just have to coach them up. And we were experiencing the same thing at our company. We had grown so large that we had so many managers involved in the hiring process that you had this wide variance of how they assess talent, and people were interviewing people that weren't going to come on their team, and they were far more relaxed, right? So where I'm going with this is a way to provide lean. So what we decided to do is I remembered this book and what was talked about, and so I brought it up to my boss and my our recruiting team, and I'm like, why don't we have a specialized team of recruiters who just do all that? And instead of, we had what, a couple multiple hour blocks each week on
Mm-hmm.
each of our managers' calendar. I think it took up 4 hours a week for
Yeah.
everybody, and sometimes it was used, sometimes it wasn't. But now we freed up basically an extra 16 to 20 hours a month of productivity for leaders to spend more time
10%.
coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then we got less variance on the talent, and the people who are coming in, the new hires, were just as productive, if not more productive, than under the previous experience because again, sometimes we had a higher rate of performance management for people, and you got all this productivity for managers. So that's like one example of lean. It's like, how do you basically enable your people to do the highest and best work? And where can you have other people take on that work that's not as high and best use for them, and they can specialize and you get better productivity? And the other one was when I was client facing. I share this story every once in a while with folks, and they're always like, oh my gosh, I should do that. So in when I was in a client facing role, one of the things we had to do after the call is what we called a post call follow up to the client. So you recap the call, you recommend some resources that they could leverage, do better at their job. One of the problems we have is work with busy executives, and sometimes they have the best intent to leverage those resources, but life happens, right? And they never do it. And so our post call follow up rates, like the best open rates for the people who did it the best, was like 38%. And then you have a lower click through rate where they actually click through the resources and leverage the insight. And so I'm like, well, I don't want to have to keep following up every 2 weeks with a client. So what I would do is, in Outlook, they have a feature called delayed delivery. So I would draft my post call follow up and say, okay, we talked about like these three main topics. The primary topic you said was most important was X. Here's three resources around X. And then I would batch the work. So while I was doing that same post call follow up, I opened up another email and I would say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Client, last week we spoke about this, but you also had mentioned this other topic. Here's some resources on that. And I used the first email as a forward. So it had the first email
Mm.
in the trail, then the second email, and I would schedule that to go out 3 to 5 business days later. So it accomplished a couple of things. One, the open rate and the click through rate went through the roof. My client engagement scores went through the roof. Two, from a psychological perspective, the clients, like, because I would always be like, hey, last week, I was just thinking about our conversation last week. So now they're thinking, hey, this person's even thinking about me, even though it's been over a week or so since we last spoke. And it built trust.
Mm-hmm.
And like I cared, which I did
Mm-hmm.
care, but it was how I positioned the work. So I ended up being more efficient because I did multiple outreaches to client. I did the work once. It maybe added an extra 2, 3 minutes to my work. But because of that feature, so automation, semi automation, I was able to do multiple outreaches. Clients didn't fall through the cracks. and the engagement scores went through.
I love that. I love that. I didn't even actually know that part. But
Mm.
to get back to, I love both example. To get back to the first example, it's typical. Like I mentioned the three questions to ask.
Mhm.
So, are we doing it the right way? So the answer based on the fact that at that time leaders were doing the interview, not even for their own BUs.
Mhm.
So if it's not for you, you probably put a lot less different kind of energy, and you let people
Yeah.
go easier. Oh yeah, I like that person. But
Mhm.
if it was for and that was usually a question that I remember they were asking, like they were telling us, if at the end of the interview you ask yourself, would I take that person within my organization? If the answer is no, that's automatically a fail or
Right.
not higher. But people, you have always people who are a bit softer and they're just like, oh yeah, I like it, the nice person,
Mhm.
which nice doesn't
They'd
is not
work over
really.
here in this unit, but not ours. Yeah.
Exactly. So again, the question about are we doing this the right way, was the answer would be no,
Mhm.
because it's a better way to free up 10% time for leaders who can actually coach and improve the qualification skills and stuff like that from their associates. So better with clients, so better engagement, so better retention.
Mhm.
So that's actually what we wanted to do. And then the third question was, do we have the right people? So the people was not the problem, but the people who were actually doing the work were not the right people.
Right. They weren't
So
the experts.
exactly.
Yeah.
So you change to have experts doing the same thing all day, every day, because they're expert of doing that.
Mhm.
Free up time to do better things. So you don't, you made the process a lot easier, better waste management when big time, and then we improve the quality of the people coming in, less like putting someone on a performance plan because the people coming in are better.
Mhm.
So it's a win-win-win situation. So
Mhm.
that's definitely like that. I love that example because that's a real definition of lean. And lean is not something that you do once. It's something that you need to maintain and entertain. And every process can be improved, but every person can also adapt and contribute.
Mhm.
And that's something that when everybody understand the lean process and the mindset, like I mentioned earlier,
Mhm.
then you have a higher chance, a probability that everybody will be swimming in the same direction
Mhm.
to improve, the end results of your business,
Yep.
whatever it can be. So love it, love lean, and thank you for giving those two examples. I think they're
Oh yeah,
perfect.
my pleasure. It really is a mindset. It's like where do you find the inefficiencies and how do you optimize it? And I'll leave with one last example on a personal. Alex Hamajani, I can never pronounce that guy's name right. The guy with the big beard, he's always on social media talking about
Oh yeah,
entrepreneurship and
yeah.
stuff. Alex H.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. However,
yeah.
sorry, Alex, however your last name, but if you come on the show, I make sure I get your name right. But but he posted something on Threads now. I've been checking
Mhm.
Threads every little bit here and there in social media. And I've always believed this, but he just detailed it in such a really good way. He's like, if you outsource certain aspects of your life, and this is where it's applying to lean because it's about optimizing. If you hired a house cleaner, if you hired for food prep, you hired laundry service, and you did all these different things. Maybe he just made it as an example. That would say cost you maybe $1,500 a month. But if you did all those things on your own, it would take you about 100 hours collectively, maybe you and your partner or whatever. And he goes, so just equate that to a hourly figure.
Mm.
It's like 15 bucks an hour, but you've freed up over 100 hours in your personal life, which could be used for productivity on a business you're doing, productivity at your job, could be just work-life balance. So
Mhm.
you're not as stressed out and your quality of work improves or your quality of life
100%.
improves because now you've done that. And I shared this. We had a recent meeting with some other senior leaders, and I was talking because my wife is very frugal, so it's been a process to get her to embrace that, which it's good because we have a little more money than what we would if I managed everything, but also it's trying to get quality of life, right? So anyway, so I was talking to this one person. She's like, yeah, but if I paid the clean, they never do a good a job.
Ah, not like
Is what
me.
and
Not
then
like me.
cleaning, and I'm just like, I get it, but you have to think about, okay, if they did 80% as good of a job as what you would do doing it on your own, but you freed up these many hours a month. Isn't that worth it? You know, so it's all about a paradigm. It's not right or wrong, but it's just a way to view the world. And that's a way you can even apply lean to your personal life if you wish. There's a lot of other applications.
Perfect. Again, what I love about our podcast and those episodes is that, yes, it's about business and entrepreneurship, but it can be applied for so many more things, so much more things that just that. So here again, if you apply lean in your personal life, you may free up a lot of time and maybe spend a lot less money that you thought you would spend to do all those things and be able to be more productive for other situations.
Yeah, like maybe build a travel agency on the side.
There we go.
But so that'll do it for today's episode, winners on this Monday Mindset. Please be sure to subscribe, share, and follow on your favorite platform. We're on all of them. And a shout out again to nickmenard.com and the 1% Push and his Amazon bestseller, Mindset is My Degree, for sponsoring today's episode. That'll take care of this Monday. We'll see you next time, winners.
Bye, winners.